For a long time, I think I understood the basic process of proof of work, at least on the surface level. Miners build candidate blocks. They compete to solve a difficult mining problem. One miner solves it first and broadcasts their block to the network. Nodes then check it. If the block follows Bitcoin's rules, it is accepted. That part made sense to me. What I did not understand was why the process was necessary in the first place. Why does Bitcoin need miners competing at all? Why cannot transactions simply be checked by software, placed into blocks, and added to the blockchain? That question sat with me for quite some time. Only later, through study, was I able to grasp the answers to those questions. My stumbling block was that even though I knew Bitcoin was decentralized, part of my thinking was still shaped by a centralized picture of how a ledger works. I was still imagining one clean process happening somewhere. Transactions arrive, a block fills up, nodes check it, the block gets added, the chain moves forward. And that would work if Bitcoin were a centralized system, if there were one master copy of the ledger sitting somewhere. But Bitcoin is not built that way. Instead, it consists of thousands of nodes around the world, each running its own copy of the Bitcoin ledger. That is where it gets tricky in terms of understanding. If there is no central command point, who decides which block gets added next? Because you have to understand that transactions are being broadcast across the network all the time. Nodes and miners see those transactions through the connections they have to the rest of the network. They will not all see exactly the same transactions at exactly the same moment. A node in Australia may see one transaction before a node in Europe sees it. A miner in North America may have a slightly different view of the mempool from a miner in Asia. The differences may not be huge, but they are real. Timing matters, distance matters, network connections matter. So, what it means is that miners are not all building the same block. Each miner builds their own candidate block from the transactions they see and choose to include. Another miner may build a slightly different block. Many of those blocks may be perfectly valid, but they cannot all become the next block in the same chain. Bitcoin needs all honest nodes to keep converging on the same blockchain. If different parts of the network simply added different valid blocks based on what they saw first, the ledger would begin to fracture. Different nodes could end up building on different versions of history. That would not work. For Bitcoin to function, all honest nodes need a way to settle on the same next block and keep moving forward together. So, the question becomes, of all the valid candidate blocks being proposed by miners, which one becomes the next accepted block in the chain? That is where proof of work comes in. Miners compete to solve the difficult mining problem for their own candidate block. The winning miner broadcasts their block to the network. Then the nodes check it. If the block breaks Bitcoin's rules, the nodes reject it. The miner may have spent real electricity, but they receive nothing. But if the block is valid, honest nodes accept it and add that same block to their own copy of the blockchain. Then the process begins again. This is the part I had not properly appreciated. Proof of work is not just miners competing for a reward. It is the mechanism that allows thousands of separate copies of the Bitcoin ledger to remain aligned without one central party deciding what the official ledger should be. This is also why the criticism of Bitcoin's energy use has to be framed carefully. Bitcoin mining uses energy. That is true. But the focus should be on what that energy is doing and not the amount that is consumed. In Bitcoin, Energy is part of the cost that makes the selection process hard to fake. It prevents history from being cheap to rewrite. It means a miner cannot simply claim authority over the ledger. They have to show proof of work first. And even then, their block must pass inspection. A miner who follows the rules may be paid. A miner who breaks the rules wastes their own money. That is the economic pressure built into Bitcoin. It does not rely on miners being honest because honesty is noble. It rewards them for producing blocks the nodes will accept and leaves them carrying the cost when they do not. That changed how I think about proof of work. I used to see it as a strange technical process attached to Bitcoin mining. Now I see it as part of how Bitcoin keeps a decentralized ledger moving forward. Without a central bank, without a company server, without a trusted committee. Without one party deciding what the official history should be. I understood the process. I did not understand why the process was necessary. Now I see it more clearly. Bitcoin needs a way to decide what happened, without trusting someone to decide it. Proof of work is that way. I've written more about this on Substack if you prefer reading. The link is in the description.